I just want to do a quick video, hopefully on my understanding of a little bit of what's going on here with, and I've talked about this a little, before in some other videos, but maybe I'll probably have to retitle it because it's called Hebrew Israel blinding. I need to put Israelite, Hebrew Israelites blinding or something. I'll have to change the title. There is something going on with these people. And it's, for people that are completely casting away it as total trash or nothing, you can't do that. But there's still a blinding going on. But there is something to this. There is some kind of a little bit of a coming out of some kind of dormant sleep. But they're still blinded, okay? They're still blinded. And I'm explaining it. Because it's prophesied, it's said that Jerusalem, and this is speaking of natural Jerusalem, God's original people that he called out, that came from Abraham, descendants, that they would be trampled by going back to the natural understanding of Gentiles until the time of the end. And there's some kind of some kind of awakening going up with these people. And the reason why it's still blinding is because they don't truly know for sure if they're from Abraham's line, that they don't have total absolute proof. And some of these people probably are. I'm not going to deny that, but there were Egyptians, there were other nations back then. So they don't know for sure if they're from the Egyptian line because Moses looked just like the Egyptians and Paul was called an Egyptian. So they looked like the Egyptians. That's just one example. The Hebrews back then, they looked just like the Egyptians. They couldn't really, they looked similar. They weren't radically different looking people, same race, if you will. So this sort of wakening up, but like going back to the covenant and like they really pound that it's saved by law keeping, and it's not. It's there's only a new covenant and you're saved by grace and faith, and it's not of yourself, it's a gift of God. And then he leads you to righteousness. He's not going to lead you to just start breaking his commandments. But a lot of people can't understand this. So we're not saved by keeping, I'm trying to keep a physical law and this is what saves me. But that's how they teach these people. And they're growing, it seems like. Just the last few years, there's a lot, and they have attitude problems still. They're very harsh and brutal, and a lot of them are truly racist, and that's not good. But there is something to it. It's like a major sign to me that the people that were prophesied to go into slavery and always have people above them. Deuteronomy 28 is huge. There's so much cursing in that chapter. This is what the cursings will be to these people. And my understanding is just what Christ said, that they will be trampled by Gentiles, other peoples, until the very end, until the coming of Christ. So even though there's some kind of wakening up going on, there's still going to be, they're not going to get some land back. That's not my belief, right? That's not what it's even about, right? That's not what it's about. It's the kingdom of heaven. And there's going to be a restoration on earth, and there's going to be a kingdom manifested, but it's not about during this age getting some land back for just a certain race of people. It's not about that. The prophecy of the people being gathered together back to the land, that represents, my understanding, is the resurrection. That's the great gathering back of all of God's people, whoever they are, that believe. It has nothing to do with color. And they're going to reign with Christ. So they're going to be a part of this restoration of all things. So it is something to do with that in a sense, but it's not the way they teach it, and not the way the church world teaches it, and they're right. I believe they're right that the people in Jerusalem today, that city over there, that some of them might be of some kind of, descendants, but I think most of them are not, because you got to believe God. You got to believe God. They would be trampled until the end. There's no salvation. There's nothing good coming truly until he says, the next time you'll see me, you'll say, not the people he was talking to, but these people, the line. The next time you'll see me, you're going to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So there's going to be this trampling, this enmity, this hatred between the powers that be and some of these people, and Black Lives Matters and all this stuff. This is not an accident. This enmity was prophesied long ago, 1,500 years before Jerusalem got destroyed. It's been written in the 5 books and other places, not just Deuteronomy. It's just that I found Deuteronomy 28 is the most detailed chapter that there is in one chapter about what actually happened in Jerusalem in 70 AD when the Romans crushed them, and maybe even other nations too. So there's there's a battle going on between the church world and these people, and their old covenant, strictly old covenant. They think they're saved by what they wear, the way some of them. It's just interesting watching some of this, because it's just interesting to me, that some of them say that Israelites used to do this or something. It's all about the outwardly. They're not focusing on the heart. And I've found groups that are a little bit better. They focus a little bit more on the heart, and they're exposing some of these other ones. So there's just a lot of division going on with these people. And I don't know who's truly how do we know that a lot of these aren't Egyptians, like I said? So there's a problem. And the reason why it's not important is because it's not really important. You're supposed to believe in the Messiah, black, white, green, yellow, brown, red. It doesn't matter who you are. That's the truth. This is what God always intended and was pointing to in the future. It's not about a race. It's about belief and overcoming sin, but it's not about a color and what you wear, and they would make a big deal about it. I'm going to rename this video, and it might draw some of those people in, and maybe a couple of them maybe could come to some kind of knowledge that this is not the right path. This is practice Satanism and do not see it mostly his image, which is spirit. Yeah, well, yeah, we're supposed to become in his spiritual image, but this is what Paul was battling in his writing so much. Once you see this, it becomes so clear. He was battling the Hebrews who were focusing on saved by law keeping, and he was focusing hard on it's through faith that you're made right, that you receive the Spirit of God. All these things are through faith. It's not by law keeping. So he had to battle these Hebrews, and there were many of them. All of Jerusalem was like this. Most of them, they were prideful, self-righteous, which is law keeping is exposing self-righteousness instead of denying yourself and saying, okay, the Spirit will lead me and guide me into all truth. It's not by my law keeping that makes me righteous. I can't keep this law perfectly spiritually in the heart. So I trust that he will actually change me and make me do these things. So it is important. The law is not garbage. Paul says that the law is righteous and good. That's how you know what sin is. But you're not saved by trying to keep it. Adam trying to be good is not good. Adam needs to die, that death, second death. And I believe that's the only proper understanding. The second death is dying to who and what you are and becoming a new creation in his image, all in God's perfect timing. So I don't know that you can really get through to most of these people, because God's blinding is very severe, It's by his grace and mercy that someone becomes unblinded, because Paul was a zealous, or Saul, Saul before Paul was zealous about law keeping. And he said concerning the law, I was perfect. He was doing these things. And yet, keeping physical laws, you can be so good at it and actually practice religion, and his heart could be far from God, which is exactly what Paul was. He understood. You can keep don't murder, but how's your hatred for people? That is murder. That's what God cares about. Not that he doesn't care about actually killing someone. That's not what I'm saying. But the main thing is the law is spiritual. Don't have hatred in your heart towards people. And Paul hated the early believers, the Christians, the believers, the first Hebrews that came to belief. He hated them. That's a problem. And these people still have hatred in their heart towards, and you can you could see why. I'm not justifying it, but I'm giving the other side of it too. The brutality of what the elite have done throughout the ages, and created this enmity, this slavery. It's wrong, but God is sovereign, and he declared all this would be because of their great unbelief and denial of the Messiah, that this people would be blinded until the fullness comes in of the Gentiles. And that's why it's so it's evil for these full preterists to say that Christ came in, and they have to say that, or Christ came back, everything is, the fullness of it has all come. They teach this full preterism, and they say that the fullness of the Gentiles must have came in 70 AD. That's some evil stuff, man. That's denying that God is still calling out Gentiles to this day, a few. So God showed me that, because I didn't have this understanding perfectly always. I didn't have the types, that what happened in Jerusalem was a type under the old covenant, because it still stood, and everything during the old covenant times are types and shadows. So unfortunately, the prophecy is, my understanding of it is, there is going to be a brutal time coming eventually on New Jerusalem and all over the earth. There's going to be a serious tribulation, and these people say it's getting better and better. It's what they teach, full preterist. It's a deception. So they're leading into people becoming content with the world is kind of good and it's actually getting better and better. So if these things start to take place in this generation, they're gonna have a hard fall. It's gonna be a hard spiritual fall. They're not gonna be ready for anything, because their masters and false prophets told them it's getting better and better, and they don't see what's coming. I don't I don't know for sure. I'm not gonna claim, but it's some interesting times. It's some pretty seriously interesting times. There's way more signs now than there was like 100 years ago, when people thought, oh, his coming is soon, but I don't want to play that the boy cried wolf too much here. I'm not making any official claims like this, but even if it's 100 years off, it's still close. It's always near, because life is short. These things must take quickly in your life, overcoming sin and, following through faith. These things must happen quickly in your life, because there's never that much time, because people don't live 900 years like they did in the beginning. That their life is 70, 80, 90, if you're, I guess, blessed to live that long. But or maybe for some people cursed to live that long. I don't know, but they don't trust people who know Christ around them, and we are the ones with the real binoculars. Yeah. Yeah, they don't truly trust. It's hard to explain what's going on in the people's hearts, but the Hebrews, along with all unbelievers and everything else, they don't And many Christians haven't truly denied themselves and follow and listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. It's a concern for the carnal body. Yeah, the focus should be always that he's near. He's just a couple words away from like true belief, like Paul says. He's always at hand. The Comforter is always here for those who believe. We will sup with him, the Father and the Messiah being one in the Spirit, like-minded. We will come in and sup or eat with them. That's true right now. It's not just some future. And so I'm going to rename this video to maybe bring a few of those people in, and maybe they can hear this message. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to hear it, but he still calls out a few of them, even though it's the age or time of the Gentiles, he still calls out a few of the original covenant people. But most of them, though, for now are blinded to this truth, and they willfully ignore certain scriptures. Many of them, they don't have an answer for it. It's a major contradiction. They get angry and they ignore it. They ignore that the new covenant is all are one under him. They ignore that, like, with tears, not like literally, but spiritually, like they're ignoring it bitterly, that it's all are one. They want to be above and special, and that's not good, because Christ was a servant. He washed people's feet. That's the image. That's the example of being a servant. And you can't start saying, I'm above everyone, I'm better than everyone because I'm the chosen people and I'm a colored. That isn't true. It's not that everyone's equally important, but it's not about that. It's not about that. You will guide what title the video should be. Yeah. Even when you don't know what to say, God puts words in your mouth to people, and you just end up saying the right thing. That's the kind of faith you're supposed to have. You might even end up saying something you don't fully understand just that minute, and then you think back and say, wow, God led me to say the perfect thing for that time, that purpose, to that person. Yeah, there's no peace coming, true peace coming, because God is separating the sheep from the goats spiritually, even now, and has always been doing. The scattering is not just for some future. It's always happening. He separates his people from the goats. Your own members of the household could be your enemies, like Christ said, and the members of the household are your, however he says it, spiritually, spiritual level. They're not with you. They're against the truth. And I believe, my understanding is, the rabbit holes and deceptions will just continue to grow. There's so many rabbit holes, deceptions, and paths for people to choose, religions. There's so much confusion. So the people that claim to know truth, I guess they come out as almost insane to actually say, hey, this is the truth for the whole world. From their perspective, that's crazy, because they don't actually believe in any divine truth, that there's actually a truth, it exists, and this is the truth. They don't, unbelievers, they make up their own truth the best they can with their carnal mind, leaning on their own understanding, and that's what God gives them. They go down whatever path, deception. But Hebrew Israelites, it's a sign. Times are getting crazy, but like I read here, the focus is not on the physical things. It's not what Christ taught. That's not the focus. The focus is the kingdom of heaven is in your midst, within, and the blessings are within, and the war is within, and the war in Revelation is within. You know, granted, there's going to be some kind of physical manifestation of war, and there always has been, but that's not the important thing. The war is spiritual, like Paul said. He wasn't talking about putting on a physical helmet, a physical sword, and a breastplate. Those are spiritual words. The war is the battle against your own temptations, against the evil in this world and the evil beliefs and teachings and works of this world. That's the battle. The sword is not, he came to bring the sword, not peace. The sword is his word, and that word divides people, and that's what this division between soul and spirit, division between the carnal person within you, separating that and killing it between the spirit, and that's the sword. You know, there's not going to be a physical sword coming out of Christ's mouth and slashing flesh. It's not going to happen. The sword coming out of his mouth in Revelation is his word, and it kills the flesh. If that's the path we're on, it starts destroying it, because his word is spirit and the sword is his word, and these are all one thing. And it's amazing how so many people don't focus on this. You know, they're focusing on debates, on theology constantly, on things of the world and outwardly things, and they never get to this point of knowledge in Christ that the war is within, and if you're not battling within, you're losing the war. They can say right things, but a lot of even the right things they say, I don't believe they fully comprehend it or understand it. They're focusing way too much on this world, way too much on the activities and the evils on this world. There's so many big time channels with 300,000 subscribers, you know, talking about the end constantly, and every little detail is a sign. And I'm not going to say that they're outright wrong or something, but they're focusing on the wrong thing completely. You can't focus on that. You could mention it, like I'm mentioning, you know, the Hebrew Israelite people, whoever they are, there's something strange going on. You got to acknowledge that, but it's not about that. They're missing the boat by not actually denying themselves and following the Spirit. These people, they're focusing on, look how good we are, because we're Hebrew Israelites, they claim, and because we dress like this, and because we keep the law, and all these things. You are your worst own enemy. Yeah, there's no greater truth. The heart is corruptible, or the heart is deceitful above all things. So if you lean on your own understanding, you're leaning on your own corruptible heart. People don't get that. The heart is deceitful above all things. Who can know it? Some translations say desperately wicked. There's another kind of, some translation have like a little bit of different of a, because the Hebrew does kind of, I don't have it remembered though, but you know, desperately wicked, who can know it? It does have that meaning, but there's like another meaning. Sometimes it's good to see other translations to kind of get a fuller picture. And then there's people out there that focus on like the King James version only, you know, and that's their main ministry. We are Bible believing, King James only, authorized version. There's so much rabbit holes. You can't do that. God didn't need a perfect translation because the Spirit teaches you anyways. The book is good. You know, it's kind of like the law. The law is good. It's righteous. The Bible's, it's good. It's not trash. It's good. But you can't receive life, eternal life from a book, from just a book, literally. God's got to give you the meaning and understanding of these words. And you could get that through most translations, even some perverted ones, you know, and I'm not saying to go and get the worst translation, you know, but it's not about that. there's all kinds of translations, and some of them are less correct because they don't go literally. They kind of make up whatever they think this means, but it's still not important, because through all that, I believe the way it's done like this is it sort of separates the people who actually have faith from the ones that don't. If somebody doesn't have a perfect Bible in their mind, they don't have faith. If you tell them that the King James Version is not a perfect translation, they go belly up. Their faith is that in the Bible instead of in God, and it can't be like that. So there's a lot of groups like that, and man authorized this book. So what is that? That's they trust man over God. It's the only authorized version, they say. Well, a man did that, and this man was most likely probably not a true believer. Who knows what you can read for sure on who King James was, because it's hard to ever know if you got the perfect history because of the deception and rewritings and all these things. But King James might have been, a homosexual. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say I came across that. He might have been a gay man, but I don't know for sure. It's stupid to rely on that, is my point. I personally, just for general reading, whenever I do read, I like the New King James because it follows the traditional text, but it gets rid of all these old words and stuff. But then sometimes I use Young's Literal or Rotherham or Concordant or whatever. But God is giving me the understanding. The more understanding I have, the less I need to do, oh, let's do a word study. I already have the understanding spiritually. I see what those words mean through virtually any translation. So in the beginning, I kind of focused on that a little. And then as time went on, I saw that it's more and more unnecessary and even vain in a way to not trust in God for understanding, instead of constantly, oh, if this word isn't perfect, there goes my faith. Whatever we have, it's God's design. It's his plan. He never intended for there to be a perfect translation, because if he did, then there would be. So I believe that divides people. That's that sword from the people who, just another rabbit hole for people who have not true faith from the people that have true faith. They can come up to these King James only people and tell them it's about God showing you his truth through the Spirit. Yeah, it does. There goes my faith for these people that really rely on this. And there's all kinds of other things, carnal things that people get into about scriptures. Yeah, it is. That's exactly my understanding. God has so many filters and traps. It traps people who don't have faith. There's traps. It's God who put the stumbling stone so that the Jews in the beginning would trip and not believe in him. It says, I lay the stumbling stone in Zion, from Zion. I lay this stumbling stone, and they trip spiritually. And he's able to make sons out of these rocks, Christ said. Out of these stones can come, that's the faith you're supposed to have. Look at this rock, and he's not talking literally, but out of these stones, out of these cold, hard, dead, nothing things, I can make a believer. Probably got enough what I wanted to say about Hebrew Israel, but Israelites. But there's a lot more that could be said, I think, going into details that aren't really necessary, I don't think. But what else? Is there anything else on my mind on what's going on there? I think most of them are like a King James only kind of thing too, most of them, because of the authorized thing and whatever. So from like a bird's eye view, it's a little bit humorous what's going on. You can't take this too seriously. People are weak. They need God for understanding. It's so evident and obvious. And when you just look and take a back seat and look at everything, sometimes it's a little humorous. craziness and division and confusion. Everything God said, all these words are true. Prophecy is being fulfilled over and over spiritually, in that people are blind and can't see truth unless God drags them in and gives them truth. You're gonna, lean on your own understanding has like no meaning to them. They can say these things, but they don't actually practice or do what they say. When preachers talk about and bring up, don't lean on your own understanding, do they lean on the Father for all things? Truly? Do they themselves do that? And do the people that they're speaking to do that? Or do they just have good theology in their head? Oh yeah, that's good. Don't lean on your own understanding. And then they just listen to the pastor and never question anything. Well, they're not really following that, are they? No, and I don't think most people are, but he's not going to lead you into deception. He's leading you out of deception, bit by bit, every minute of every day, slowly but surely, maybe sometimes quickly. And that's it's internally, it's taught that you can't just worship a Bible. Christ said in the scriptures to the Pharisees, in the scripture, you search in the scriptures and think in them you have eternal life, but they all point towards me, and you're denying me, so you're going to have nothing. But you read the Bible and you constantly teach people your own laws, and you mix in your own traditions. You don't even keep the law properly. You do all these things and twist them and make up your own beliefs, and you think that's salvation. Well, it's not. So there's a spiritual destruction, a blinding. They can't hear God's voice. They can't hear the true shepherd's voice in the spirit. That's a joke to most people, I think. Yeah, I seek the Father daily to do his will, to hear his voice. And they think you're crazy. A lot of these people. What are you talking about? Where'd you get your truth from? Well, ultimately, God guiding me and leading me into it bit by bit through all kinds of means, through his word, through other teachers, through revelation and understanding. He just gives you the understanding of these words, and you could see it, through all these things. But they don't do that. And maybe the most amazing thing out of all things is that the average person, most people, don't actually trust in the Father for truth through the Messiah. They don't actually lean on his understanding. They lean on their own understanding. I find it amazing. It's like it's a door that's closed. They can't even think about, okay, I need to dump everything. Don't lean on my own understanding, and I'm going to seek truth from him. You show me the way. They can't even think that. It's like it's impossible. Even after you tell them, they still don't do it. I've had that experience. They don't do it afterwards. I don't know what goes on in their mind, but some kind of blinding. And they get angry, and if some of these people do watch this video, most of them will end up being angry at me, even though I'm trying to, and I'm not speaking of like, oh, I'm trying, it's not me, it's God who does the increase, but I'm trying to give them something good, and I'm not against them, but they're going to be angry. And I've tried to get through to some of these people, and I questioned a few of their things to try to open up their mind, and they got angry. They said, I'm just a white bastard, and I'm going to hell because there's no salvation for white people. So that's pretty harsh, man. It's pretty harsh. Yeah, pray for them. Pray for your people who hate you, people who don't hate you. Pray for them who despitefully use you and persecute you. That's the Messiah's teaching, but it's not the human nature. If you're truly doing that from the heart, God is working in you. If you pray for people from your heart and you don't hate them, enemies that don't like you, then that's the Spirit of God working in you, because there's no way you could have done that by your own natural understanding and way. The natural man always wants to like fight back and hate back. It's the natural response. So those were some hard words that they couldn't hear long ago, and they still can't hear them. Through the revelation of who the man Christ is, we can know that God's character, even though we don't know, like, I mean, his ways are higher, his understanding, his thoughts are always going to be higher, but whatever God wants to show us, we can understand that this is who God would be if he were a man. You know, he revealed himself through a man for humanity to relate to a man. So that's who you're supposed to become, like Christ. The attitude, the mindset, everything. And when you do these things, then you're blessed when you actually start doing them. Because anger and wrath and all these other things are nasty. They eat at you like a worm. Like you're getting devoured within when you're wrathful and angry and hate people. That's God's wrath or judgment, you know, on people. When they hate, they're given over to hatred, and that's bad. It's eating at them. It's killing them. But when you do the opposite, then you receive the same back. You receive what, you know, you reap what you sow. If you forgive others, then he forgives you, see? But if you don't forgive others, then there's a blinding, a spiritual destruction, hatred. You receive forgiveness is to have like peace and joy, you know, all the fruits of the Spirit. But if you don't forgive someone else, then he won't forgive you until you do that. Then you're not going to have these things. It's going to be taken away from you. The deeper you go into this carnality. I think that's all I got. So I just think it's interesting. I wanted a title that actually brought this up, and maybe it'll draw in one person out of whoever watches from those people, and maybe they'll see something. But then they're going to have to come out of there. So it's a persecution. There's a brotherhood there. But you can't constantly be one with these people and also have the mind of, you know, he's going to drag you out of there because they don't have the same mind. So that if bad company corrupts good morals, you can't be one with them. He's going to pull you out of there ultimately, and that's not going to be comfortable. So, you know, what are you going to do? That's how he works. It's not that they can't talk to them ever, but, you know, you can't be in the same group supporting the same thing, supporting what they support. Old covenant law keeping is what saves you, and all these other things. They if somebody starts believing the truth, they're going to have to come out of there, and that's a tribulation in itself, because then you lose all your brothers, your buddies, you know. So you got to come out. But I think it's definitely something. It's definitely signs and stuff all like this, but people who aren't focusing on within are already losing the battle, so it can't be the main focus. Yeah, yeah. Everyone who has true understanding will receive that back, you know. And they're starting to, you know, I think they've been in the news and stuff, and more people maybe are finding out about, but the bad things are being portrayed, the hatred, and you're a white man and devil, and that's starting to be, you know, their image to whoever else. No one's gonna, you know, the only people that will believe that are people who sort of are, you know, they're gonna get sucked into that. Like, hey, you're a brother, you know, the Bible's for you because you're a Hebrew Israelite. That's everything. Those words are so wrong. The Bible, the scriptures are for you because this is who you are. No, it's for everyone. But I don't know that it'll get better for them. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I think this sort of blinding is going to continue. In my opinion, my understanding, they're growing, but it's growing in a lack of knowledge. And I think the blinding will remain because I believe the scriptures on that. Our own country fills them with an excuse to hate people, just like it's got a few for. Yeah, it's just enmity and hatred. And then the other people hate them back and say they're racist, and then they cuss them out and hate them. It's just back and forth. Nobody's truly living the right way. Yeah, stunts forgiveness. They have bitterness in their hearts because of some of the things they see that's been done for the last like 2,000 years. But I mean, I understand that if these things are true and this is what's happened in history, and I believe it has, that it's been overall a pretty bad experience for whoever these people are. But they have a bitterness and hatred in their heart. They kind of want revenge, which is exactly what we're told not to do, is not to return evil for evil. So they're ultimately, well, I mean, they're ultimately being hypocritical because they want to do back what people have done to them. And that's not who God is. God's the perfect judge, and we're not supposed to judge and condemn and hate people. So that's not what the Messiah did. He spoke true words. He exposed darkness, but he didn't hate them. He did not hate them. He said he wishes they would all come under him like a hen chick comes under his wings, but they, just because God was just not, for whatever purpose and reason, his own counsel stands, he didn't drag them in. And Christ understood that they couldn't believe. They didn't come in. They were hardened. They were darkened. He spoke to them in parables so that they don't understand, so that the prophet of Isaiah could be fulfilled. And that's always being fulfilled, that people who are blinded are fulfilling that prophecy of they have eyes but can't see, they have ears but can't hear, spiritual. Obviously they can see physically and hear physical things, but they can't hear his word, his spirit, spiritual things. Long Beach, California, right? Yeah. Oregon, Jefferson, Oregon, here, little town between Salem and Albany. Used to live in California until like I was 12 or so. We used to live there in Madera Ranchos, little town like not too far from Fresno. So I think I better end it here because I'm trying to, and now I'm starting to try to think instead of just going freely, trying to think of what to say. So that's never good. So I'm gonna end it here. Peace. Take care. Trust in the Father only, and that's the only way. Because our way is no good. It's junk. All right.